Good afternoon, Deb.
Good afternoon, Paul. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Long time no see.
I know. Yeah, I've waited a while to do this for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Life happens, doesn't it? And things just.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm glad that I'm here today.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I mean, we said we'd have a chat about Pips, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was like my first club that I ever went to, and my absolute favourite, because it's a bit like when you go somewhere where you're young, and it's like your first. It's like your first love.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely amazing. Sort of just the sort of place that played every single kind of music that I liked, and I couldn't kind of believe it. So kind of when I was young, I was always a Bowie fan.
Yeah.
And you'd have those periods in your bedroom where you're playing music and just totally absorbed in Bowie.
Yeah.
And I never thought there'd be anywhere that'd be playing that.
Yeah.
Because it was just me and a vinyl, and that was it. And started getting his albums from the start, and then found out that there was a club in Manchester. So this was when I was a teenager. I found out there was a club. I kept seeing people around the area where I lived, like dressed like Bowie, like Aladdin Sane, and big, pants on, and dyed red hair and all this. And we had quite a few people that used to go to Pips. So there was a guy called Mark Tate, who was sort of a known face in there.
I've heard that name.
Yeah, he was everyone sort of knew him, and I'd be one of those people that'd be like dressed like Aladdin Sane or something.
Yeah.
He always looked really cool, and he seemed to know everybody. And also where I lived was Marino Morgan, who ended up getting Conspiracy.
Oh, wow.
Which was Pips, after Pips.
Yeah.
He bought it. He always wanted to buy it. So he lived around our area. And there were other people who were into Bowie, and you'd sort of see them dressed up and going out when I was sort of 15-ish or whatever, and I think, where are they going? I want to go wherever it is. And at that time, I was kind of into punk. So there'd be, most of the people in Manchester who were into punk would know each other from one place or another, and we'd be all over Manchester or Salford. So I'd see like Jeff the Chef. I met Jeff at gigs originally, Jed Duffy, Colin, who was a window cleaner. He was kind of a mod, but he was always at punk things. And we'd go to like the Electric Circus. We'd hang out in the record shops, like in the Underground Market, looking at all the coloured vinyls and really good covers and things. And then we'd all see one another, at like the Clash or 999 or Buzzcocks gigs, Susie and the Banshee, that type of thing, and just be around town on a Saturday. But we'd also go to Bellevue on a Sunday. So there was this sort of mixture of people that were into punk and Bowie and Iggy Pop, and then they were also going on to this place, Pips. So I've just bumped into my friend Christine, and she was the first person that I ever went along with, and we were kind of like, oh God, we weren't old enough actually, but like a lot of people weren't at the time. And it was one of those, it was just like going into another world.
Yeah.
Because for one, it was underground, so you'd go, did you ever know, sort of, were you ever familiar with it? I know you're younger.
I went into the Conspiracy, and it was only when I did the video with Tim Williams that I realised that I'd been in Pips.
Right, yeah. Well, it was just, because, I don't know, there was something, it was a bit like when you're a child and you're reading books and they go into another world, like Secret Garden or something, go through into another sphere. There was something about going down kind of this underground, down some steps near the cathedral on the corner, which is where the escape rooms is at the moment. And you would, yeah, nice one. You'd kind of go down these steps.
Nice special effects.
Yes, right, get it ready. Yeah, he did say he was going to be quiet, that mechanic, electrician, whatever he is. I think he's going to do something else in a minute. So yeah, you go down these stairs, and there'd be like your reception thing and a membership desk, and you could go, there's two directions you could go. One had a room that had a stage that was all mirrored behind it, and a dance floor there, which was quite often quite quiet, but they'd have bands on in there. So like Shock were on in there there was the robotic Tick and Tock that started off sort of robotic dancing. And they used to be dressed up like white makeup and loads of eye makeup and big hair, and they started off in the sort of new romantic period. They were around, in London and all that. But they ended up on things like the Generation Game,
Yeah.
where people would end up trying to dance like them. So that was a bit odd. But yeah, them and other bands, like Joy Division, for example, when they were Warsaw, did the first gig, and I was at that, and
Did
I'm
you go to that?
virtually so. Oh gosh, yeah. But they were just people that you saw around town, like you do. Like you couldn't be knocking about at the castle or Gulliver's or wherever, and there's new bands coming through, and you sort of go, you talk to them when you're out, and then oh yeah, we'll come along, give you a bit of support, and it was sort of our regular club anyway. So yeah, I was there for that, and some people. There was a bit of something kicked off. There were some lads we were talking to, and I think they were involved in it at the time because we were quite embarrassed because we were there trying to look dead cool. And then these lads that we were talking to were like kicking off with each other and disrupting things. But, you know, when you went into Pips, generally there was that side, and then around the other side, you'd go down into this like double room, which was kind of disco, things like Chic and, oh, I don't know, Sylvester, You Make Me Feel, that kind of music. Some was like really good dance music and Donna Summer, that type of thing. And then some was like, oh God, you know, really cheesy pop that you'd see on top of the pops.
Yeah.
So you'd walk through there, they'd all be in like wide skirts and rolled back hair like Farrah Fawcett Majors, and following, you know, Olivia Newton-John and people as well. And then all of a sudden you come to this entrance which took you through to two Roxy rooms, and then in there it was like another world, like two caves joined together. And yeah, I don't know, people would wear 1940s clothes, or they could be dressed as puppets, or they could
puppets.
be anything. And the films, a lot of us were into films like Cabaret with Liza Minnelli.
Yeah.
So you could be dressed like a character from that film, or you could be dressed like Betty Davis from a 1940s film. So whereas the general thing on the street was wearing flared skirts, big shoes, roll back hair, we had these very angular haircuts, sort of quite strong makeup, pencil skirts, dressing like the Roxy Music album covers, that type of thing. Or you would completely do your own thing, and sometimes I'd get dresses from vintage shops, but then team it up with like a man's jacket and have my granddad's war medals on, and you'd have things tied in your hair and whatever. It was real improvisation. And I think a lot of people there were into fashion and art and into bands and music, so there was it was very creative. And you'd see people in various places in Manchester who were then, like I say, Manchester Musicians Collective. They'd meet at the Sawyer's Arms. I can't remember where it was before that, but some friends of ours were in bands, so we'd go along with them to that. So you're kind of circling with the same group of people, but you were all massive on fashion, but your own fashion, not like high street fashion. So it was very liberating. And it, you know, you kind of finding your identity when you're sort of 17, 18, you're just formulating who you are and getting to know yourself as a person, and not although we were into the same music, which was quite different from the mainstream music, so there was commonality between us. You were doing your own thing still, and creating your own style. So you get in there and it was like, wow, look at them, look what they've got on. It was brilliant. It was so good. And the sort of music that they were playing, you can hear a song now and it just takes you right back there, really. So yeah, and then you know, so many. I grew up in this area, Alcrington, and we'd go and meet in Middleton first. And some of my friends, the Chameleons were from there, so we'd meet up with Mark and some of the others, and Martin Coogan. I'd get a lift into town off Martin sometimes if I was lucky. I wouldn't have to get the bus. Other than that, it was like on a 17 bus. We'd go into town. I went out in a wedding dress and a vampire cape once, with my hair back-combed. And, you know, my friends were in similar. My male friends were wearing skirts or wearing pantaloons and makeup, full makeup, black nail varnish. eye makeup for the guys, that sort of thing. And then we'd go in Yates's Wine Lodge. So it caused a bit of a stir. The one that became the
stand out in there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. So you'd go in there and literally, but it was full of characters, Manchester characters. So all these old guys would be like, oh, and start chatting to you, asking you loads of questions. And then, you know, the thing was as well, I mean, now we've got a massive gay scene in Manchester.
Yeah.
It's all very acceptable. It's all very public. People can come out and not necessarily need to be afraid. Then it was really different.
Yeah.
People couldn't say, so a lot of my friends, you know, were struggling to disclose their sexuality really, and you'd get chased. So many friends would be beaten up. They'd come out of the club and then go across town. They'd have to get the bus in Piccadilly Gardens, and you know, could easily get beaten up by people who would start calling them various names and just, it was, what was that phrase they used to, I can't remember, there was a horrible phrase, like queer basher or something like that.
Queer bashing.
Yeah, so there was all that sort of thing going on. But the good thing about being inside Pips was that you were with like-minded people who were open-minded, inclusive, everyone, you know, all clothes, all types, or anything, cultures, genders, sexuality was accepted and acceptable, and it was very welcoming. So in our own little space in the two Roxy rooms, you know, it was really good. And I think Bowie's a big part of that. I think Bowie really made a difference to enable
definitely.
people. You know, so he's sort of hailed for lots of different reasons, besides his brilliant music.
He
So,
was really influential. Like I did a video with Dave Dunn, and then I asked him how he got into electronic music, and then I was surprised he said from Pips.
Yeah. I did know him back in the day, but like you lose touch with people, and you know people in there. Like I've ended up meeting people now that I knew back then when we were 17, 18, 19, and I'd know them in there. I was with a guy last week, Jeff, and his wife was like, we were chatting away, and we said it was weird because we'd see each other every week, we'd dance with each other. I'd see him around Manchester when we were out places, but I never knew his surname. I had an idea that he lived in a certain part of Manchester, but we didn't have mobile phones then. You weren't going to say, oh, can I have your number, your house phone, please, so I can phone you at some point. We didn't do that. You just see people. So you had this whole crowd of friends that you'd spend a lot of time with when you were actually out, but you weren't necessarily making plans with them in between. You would just end up in the same places. So when things changed and somewhere closed, you might not see them at all unless you like appeared somewhere else. So like after Pips, there was Exit and Berlin and DeVille's and Legends and the Hacienda, of course. Most of us would go on and go to those clubs, you know, and we'd be like this crowd, you know, watching the bands that we'd been playing and dancing to, like Fag Gadget and Bauhaus. And
Did you say you got on stage with them?
Oh gosh, that was honestly. So yeah, I went to see Bauhaus, but that wasn't. I saw them at the Hacienda, but it wasn't then. It was, I think it was when it was at Rafters. I saw them twice there. Once with Nico, and another time when they were on their own. And I was right at the front in the middle, and I had like my hair like back home like Susie and the Banshees, all this black on my face, and then you didn't, you know, you were like trying to. You were sort of kind of quite composed, looking ultra cool, sort of thing. Yeah. It was all part of it. You weren't really cool, but it was just part of the look, at the time.
You probably were.
So I don't know. So Pete Murphy, they'd just come on stage, and there was some steps that went onto the stage, and I was right where those steps were. And I had a dress it had like whale bones in it, and it was a really long dress, like Morticia out the Addams Family. But this back-combed hair and all this black. And he just put his hand in my hair and then started to pull me up by my hair. Not hard, not like tugging my hair, but it meant that I didn't really have any choice. Yeah. I had to go with him. And he pulled me onto the stage. And somebody else that also used to go to Pips as well, I think she was called Leslie, and pulled her up. And then started sort of dancing. I'm not demonstrating, but he started kind of writhing in front of me. and it meant you either went with it or you stood there on the stage looking like an idiot when you had all this stuff on. So I thought, oh my God. So I had to dance with him, which I had to dance with. I was like really chuffed, but also really embarrassed in front of the whole audience, and danced with him. And then I was on the stage, danced to a couple of things, and then was at the side of the stage. So it's like one of my highlights. At the time, it was like, highlight of my life, dancing with Pete Murphy. Yeah. And then at the end, we just sat with them at the back, him and Daniel Ash just talking. I was only, I don't know how old I was, 18 or something like that. And I think it was doing my A-levels at the time. It was like, I've got to go home and study now. Kind of just chatting to him. It was just like a nice, friendly thing. And yeah, it was really good. Got their autographs. And the thing that I was thinking as well, which struck me, back then, when you went out to clubs, it was a smoking. Everyone could smoke.
Yeah, it's weird seeing videos now, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, everywhere would be like totally full of smoke. So I had a number 6 cigarette packet that was signed by Daniel Ash and Pete Murphy, which I've got. But at the time, like going in Pips, there wasn't just the dry ice, which gave it loads of atmosphere, but people were smoking. And sort of in Pips, you'd get these cigarette holders from like the 1920s, which you could pick up at vintage places. And then you'd get an ultra long cigarette, like there was one called Moore, which were brown and long. And then there were some others called Cocktail. And I don't know do you know them at all, the Cocktail cigarettes? They were all coloured, different colours. So you'd open this box that had like a flip lid, so it looked beautiful. The tips were gold, like a gold filter. And then there'd be lemon, pink, pale blue, whatever. And it'd all be part of the kind of thing, sit there with this, cigarettes.
Like a 1920s movie star.
Yes, yeah. But that, there was a lot of image going on in there because it was all about fashion and music, and there were lots of band members as well who were creating their images for their music. But like one of the DJs was John Richmond, who's like a world famous fashion designer. Was he a
DJ?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and he also came from where I live around that area. But he he designed for Cher and Madonna and loads of different people. Still has shops and still a designer. I think he lives in America now. He was there. We had another DJ. There were 2 who were both called Dave Booth.
Was there 2 Dave Booths?
2 Dave Booths.
I didn't know
both
that.
At the same club. Yeah. So one was like skinny and tall with dyed red hair, and then there was our Dave Booth who DJ'd for Stone Roses at Spike Island. He had like a big flick back then, like a dyed red hair, and he always wore a trench coat when he was out. And then of course he went on when there were reunions of Pips. He did the reunions, so the reunions started it closed in 1982, and I think 30 years after. There was a Facebook group that Phil Caldwell got going, and Dave, agreed to DJ. So he DJ'd right until, sadly he died, and it was during like the pandemic, so we couldn't go into the church. We just had to stand like out in the cemetery, all in a line, all these Pips people. Who worshipped him because he was a fantastic player.
Was there a big crowd of Pips people went to the funeral?
Yeah, loads. Yeah. Absolutely loads of us. And we all had to be 2 metres apart. And we were all right down the driveway that went to the church. And only, I think, just 2 people could go in, and his family, and that was it. He's such a nice boy. He's so hailed as a DJ by lots of other DJs because he was one of those people that it was very technical. He wanted it to be perfect. He wanted a perfect transition from one thing to another, but he knew which songs to follow other songs. Sometimes DJs, they might, they'll put something on, but they don't think about how that matches or keeping the dance floor going. He was brilliant because he covered the lot. So, and he'd look after his audience. He knew who he was playing to, and he knew what people liked. And so, he'd get everybody up. It was great. And he'd play, he played clubs in Manchester. I remember him at there was a place called the Universal, which was on Oxford Road. I don't think it was there for that long, but he DJ'd there as well. And so I used to see him at different places. Even went to see James Bond film with him once, which was weird. Yeah, and then when Bowie had there was an exhibition of Bowie's clothes. You know, it was before he died, and it was in London. So yeah, we'd both gone along to that, and then they showed a film of all the stuff in one of the cinemas in town. So I went to that with him as well. But he was a great bloke.
Yeah.
But there were loads. Alan Mansell.
He went on to the Brick House, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Did you go in there?
Hey, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I loved it in there.
Yeah, I think we had a mutual friend, Grace.
Grace. Yeah.
So I used to go with Grace and the Boardwalk.
Grace
as well.
worked there, didn't she?
She did.
Yeah.
So she got to know everyone. I think Oasis practiced in there, didn't they?
In the Boardwalk.
Yeah. They had that as practice rooms. There was so many, because I mean, like the Hacienda gets all the kind of highlight, but a lot of these other places it was the same people going who, you know, punks and people into Bowie and Iggy Pop and all this, had kind of had this underground thing going. But then also it merged into other clubs. There was a lot of New York dance music. So places like the Number One Club was fantastic because the DJs there, they were getting things in. And it was absolutely amazing. And that was kind of the beginning of house music as well. They were importing that. And that was being played. I think really to be a clubber at that time in Manchester was so lucky. You look at a load of the DJs now, are the people that were like in Legends playing there and the Number One Club. And
did you get to go in Legends on the electro?
Yeah. I met my husband in Legends. And
Did you?
Been together ever since. So something happened anyway. But yeah, I used to go there. But I used to go quite often. I think it was the Thursday night was more kind of our night sort of thing where it was like alternative stuff. But I went on other nights as well, but that was kind of a main night when I'd go. But there were so many places. There was somewhere for every night, really.
Yeah.
You know, Monday nights at the Ritz were a night where it'd be like The Cure and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I went to that a few times.
Yeah, because that was a good one.
Yeah.
But I don't know, there's so different phases of different clubs and different music. And I think where some people kind of went more into that gothic type of stuff and would go to Cloud 9 a lot, which was cross street. Quite a few went down that route and they were into sort of Depeche Mode and all the stuff that they were playing in there, you know, Spear of Destiny and God knows what else, bands that I probably don't even know. I'd go there, but it wasn't my thing. Everyone would sort of lay on the floor. Thought, no thanks, not my thing. But then there were other clubs like DeVille's that, and I think you interviewed Tintin.
I loved Lazy Lils.
Yeah, Lazy Lils with the booking Bronco and everything.
Because you had the two rooms, didn't you? So if you wanted like the Manchester and Acid House and Inspirals, and you had Lazy Lils, and then you could go into the DeVille's bit and get like the Joy Division and the Violent Femmes and
all that stuff. And they were playing all of that obviously at Pips as well. So we were lucky because we still had that. We still had that sort of music, and it was still carrying on. And it is, of course, you go out in town now, you can find that in different clubs still, and jukeboxes like Corbiere's and wherever. But yeah, that was a good place. But there was different phases with it as well. So I can remember like Haircut 100 and songs like Clacto Vid Seedstein or whatever that would be played in there, or Pig Bag, all that.
Yeah.
So music went off in different directions, and you'd sort of find your niche. There was Berlin as well, which was down by the side of where Kendall's is, down that street down there. That was there. I don't know if it lasted that long actually, but we went there as well, and it attracted lots of, the John, what was he called? John. Can't remember. John that had it anyway. He knew loads of people that he'd invite over, like Spandau Ballet, and different people would come as guests and that sort of thing. But the music, I tried to remember what they played in there, but I can't. They just played a mixture, I think. Can't pick a particular style. I
went to a Pips reunion. So I went to the Isadora's ones.
Yes.
And then they were brilliant, and that was like 60s music and the odd Manchester track. And then
Yeah.
a few of the crowd were from the Pips crowd, and they said, come down to the Pips one.
Right.
So I went to the Pips view, and even though I was too young and I wouldn't have gone, and then I remember thinking, wow, this music's amazing.
It was amazing.
There was records where there's a couple of times I went over to Dave and I thought I was well up and everything, but it's like, Dave, what's this track you're playing?
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what it must have been like.
It was fantastic.
When it was coming out.
It was fantastic, and it was loud as well, so you'd kind of, you'd kind of immerse yourself in this underground area, go through all this kind of dancing and fizzy stuff going on, and then go into this dark cave space, which was like two caves together. And I can remember, obviously they had like early Cure stuff like The Forest. They'd have Kraftwerk playing in there, like really early Human League, like Being Boiled and that type of thing would be on. Loads of Bowie, 999, Magazine, Joy Division. Like you were hardly off the dance floor. You were just on for everything.
And it was new.
Yeah, it was all new. It's hard to think because all that's been around now for years and years and years, and people still love it. People still buy it. Then there wasn't anything like it.
Yeah.
And obviously people like Iggy Pop was a pioneer. So they'd always have Iggy Pop, Lou Reed, they'd play things like Venus in Furs. And I don't know, it was just fantastic. I can't explain how good it was. And it still is.
I wonder if Manchester had a club like that before. I'm just thinking now, listening to you.
I know.
Maybe like the Twisted Wheel was so on it, but something that experimental and big as well.
That was like Northern Soul, wasn't it? It was just the Twisted Wheel. But that type of thing I've not known of anywhere. I think Pips was about 1972. So there's still reunions and I still go. Yeah. And there's actually one tomorrow.
Is there one tomorrow?
There is. So, but we used to have them in clubs. So we were lucky at first because, like Alan Mansell, he would let us use his space if it was the venue or wherever else. But we've hired out, rented out, or whatever, lots of different clubs around Manchester. The thing is, it's difficult getting them on a Friday or a Saturday night, just exclusively for us. So sometimes we've hired a place and then they've wanted to still open the doors for the public, which was fine by me. I don't mind that at all. But for some people, they kind of wanted it exclusive. So, that unfortunately we changed venues. But it's meant that we've tried out absolutely loads because it was going to be just one reunion a year. Then it became two. And I think in the end, we've had sometimes about 4 a year, or at least 3 every single year. The only time we missed was like the pandemic, and that was just for a short time. And at first, when we started getting together, people purposely dressed up as they used to do, which was quite funny. So yeah, we're all there wearing, the guys were wearing, some of them lost their hair. They'd been like, with the women, most of them you could think, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so. They still looked something of how they'd looked previously. Whereas a lot of the guys had lost the hair. Yeah. But some of them come with a wig on. And there were phases in Pips where certain types of music the singer might have a particular image. So, for example, like Gary Newman. I mean, I was never like a Gary Newman fan myself, but when he was out, all of a sudden you get these Gary Newman lookalikes popping up at Pips. And for some of the women there who thought he was gorgeous, it was like, right, I'll grab a Gary Newman kind of thing. And they'd end up going out with, or Dave Sylvian out of Japan. There was a couple of people that looked like him. Of course, Bowie, there were bloody loads of him. There'd be loads of people at different phases of Bowie. But one time, I remember, I was on the dance floor with my friend and we were getting a bit too vigorous dancing. And we both ended up falling on the floor and couldn't get up. And these ultra cool Bowie fans were dancing away. One had like big winged pants on like Bowie wore, and we grabbed hold of his trousers to help ourselves up. Oh God, he was not pleased. He was not pleased. He was in the middle of like one of his best mimes, and then he's got 2 women hanging on his pants. He didn't forgive us for that. So yeah, but there was a guy once I remember, and he looked amazing. And you just sort of watch him on the dance floor and think, yeah, I've got to try and copy that. How is he managing that dance? He had all these various movements, which were brilliant. So we were like watching him, and eventually sort of plucked up the courage. I said, "Oh, where did you learn to dance like that?" And then he came out with like a really strong sort of Oldham accent, and he said, "I moved my body to music and my hands to lyrics." It's just like that image was kind of, it just looked so brilliant, and you just didn't expect this really strong accent to come out of him. But he's a really nice guy. I've got a picture of him somewhere or other. So yeah, but I don't know. There's so many creative people, and loads of musicians, and I know you mentioned Certain Ratio, like they'd be in there, and Chameleons and the Cougans, and lots of sort of Manchester people would be out and about, and Johnny Marr and whoever. But it was just like the norm. It was just because I remember him being on. There was a program called Devil's Advocate, and at the time he was working in a clothes shop in Manchester. I don't know if he was full time or if he was like a Saturday lad or something. And we were like, oh, that and my friend Steve worked there with him. And we're like, oh, Johnny's on telly tonight. It was like a young person's television chat show where they give them topics to debate, like political topics. And he was on that, so it'll be in an archive somewhere. Yeah. That he was on talking. But yeah, lots of people loved Pips. Yeah. And thought of it fondly, sort of thing. It was good.
So yes. I think we're coming to the end now. Yeah. I like to get you to pick a track from your playlist.
Oh gosh.
So give me a track that takes you right back to Pips.
I adore Bowie, but any Bowie thing could do, but Editions of You by Roxy Music, when you hear that starting up, it's like, and just straight onto the dance floor. So that reminds me very much of Pips, and I loved it. Yeah. I still love it.
So thanks so much, Deb. I'm just going to stop recording now.